The first attack came without warning. Captain Jack Reynolds of the United Earth Fleet vessel Defiant was completing a routine patrol near the Neptune defense perimeter when sensors detected the anomalies. Dark shapes emerged from what appeared to be micro-wormholes, technology humanity had theorized but never achieved. Contact: multiple unknown vessels at bearing 047, called Lieutenant Tom Reed from Tactical. No recognition codes, no response to hails. Reynolds stood from his command chair, his weathered face illuminated by the red alert lights now flashing across the bridge. After 20 years in the fleet, he'd never encountered anything like this. Shields up. Defensive posture only. Continue hailing on all frequencies. Before Communications Officer Lisa Ward could confirm the order, the alien vessels opened fire. The Defiant rocked violently. 3 crew members were thrown from their stations. Emergency klaxons wailed as damage reports flooded in from every deck. Direct hits to our port nacelle and engineering section, Reed shouted over the chaos. Shields at 38% and failing. Reynolds steadied himself against his chair. Return fire. Target their weapon systems only. The Defiant's response was admirable but ultimately futile. The alien technology was too advanced, their weapons too powerful. Within minutes, the human vessel was crippled, venting atmosphere from multiple hull breaches. Captain, Engineer Mike Foster's voice crackled over the comm. The reactor containment is failing. We have maybe 5 minutes before critical. Reynolds's jaw tightened. Understood. Prepare evacuation protocols. He turned to his communications officer. Send everything we have, all sensor data, all visuals, back to Earth Command. Priority message. They attacked first. As escape pods jettisoned from the dying ship, the aliens destroyed them one by one. Captain Reynolds, refusing to abandon ship while any crew remained, watched the massacre with cold fury. He would be the only one left to bear witness to humanity's first contact with this ruthless species. With the ship's systems failing around him, Reynolds managed to engage the emergency beacon, a last desperate attempt to warn Earth of what was coming. He watched as the alien vessels regrouped, apparently satisfied with their victory, and disappeared back through their wormholes. 3 days later, a rescue vessel found the Defiant drifting in space, its hull breached and frozen. Captain Reynolds was discovered in an emergency pressure suit, barely alive, clutching a data core containing everything their sensors had recorded about the attack. Within a week, similar attacks devastated human outposts throughout the solar system. Earth Command pieced together what they were facing, a species calling themselves the Vorn, technologically superior and seemingly bent on humanity's extermination. No attempts at communication succeeded. No quarter was given to civilian vessels or colonies. As Reynolds recovered in a military hospital on Mars, he listened to the reports of Earth's desperate defense. The combined fleet was mobilizing, but analysts gave humanity less than a year before total defeat. The technological gap was simply too great. Captain Reynolds, said Fleet Admiral James Wilson, entering the hospital room. How are you feeling? Ready to get back out there, sir? Reynolds replied, struggling to sit up straighter. The Admiral nodded grimly. Good. Because I need someone who's seen these bastards up close. We're putting together a special project. Something that might give us a fighting chance. Reynolds' eyes narrowed. I'm listening. We're calling it Operation Last Light. And if it works, you'll get your chance for payback. The Vorn fleet pushed deeper into the solar system with methodical precision. Mars fell within 3 months. The Jovian colonies followed 2 weeks later. Each defeat further confirmed humanity's technological disadvantage. Meanwhile, on a secret facility buried beneath the lunar surface, Captain Reynolds worked alongside Earth's brightest minds on Operation Last Light. The project centered around humanity's most advanced warship, the Retribution, a vessel unlike any other in the human fleet. The key is in their wormhole technology, explained Dr. Anna Martinez, the project's lead scientist. She gestured to holographic displays showing recovered data from the Defiant sensors. See these energy signatures? They're creating stable paths through subspace, like shortcuts through the fabric of space-time. Reynolds studied the displays. Can we block them? Prevent them from opening these wormholes in our space? Better, Martinez grinned. We think we can turn their own technology against them. The retribution was already impressive. Twice the size of standard fleet destroyers, with experimental shield technology and advanced weapons systems. Now, they were modifying its power core to create what Martinez called a subspace resonance cascade, essentially a bomb that would detonate not in normal space, but within the subspace domain the Vorn used for their wormholes. If this works, Martinez explained, it won't just destroy their ships. It could collapse their wormhole network completely, maybe even affect their home system. Reynolds nodded slowly. How many ships can we outfit with this technology? The room fell silent. Admiral Wilson finally spoke. Just one, Jack. We don't have the resources or time for more. The retribution is it, our last, best hope. The implication was clear. This was a suicide mission. Construction and modifications continued around the clock. The retribution took shape. A sleek, intimidating vessel housing the most destructive weapon humans had ever conceived. As Earth's defenses crumbled and the Vorn approached the inner system, Reynolds assembled his volunteer crew. Each person understood the nature of their mission and the slim odds of survival. I won't lie to you, Reynolds addressed them in the Retribution's main hangar. We're going into the heart of the enemy fleet with an untested weapon, but if we succeed, humanity survives. Simple as that. His executive officer, Commander Diana Parker, stood at his side. Once his chief tactical officer on the Defiant, she had been one of the few survivors of that first attack. The ship is ready, Captain. All systems operational. The final briefing with Earth Command was somber. The latest intelligence showed the Vorn assembling their main invasion force near Venus. Earth's remaining ships would engage them there, a desperate last stand to buy time for civilian evacuations to hidden bunkers across the planet. Your mission is clear, Admiral Wilson told Reynolds. While our fleet engages their front line, the Retribution will slip behind enemy lines. Get as close as possible to their command vessels, then activate the resonance cascade. Reynolds stared at the tactical displays showing the overwhelming Vorn forces. And if this doesn't work? If the cascade fails? Wilson's expression was grim. Then use whatever conventional weapons you have to inflict as much damage as possible. Every Vorn ship you destroy buys Earth a few more hours. As the Retribution prepared for launch, Reynolds made a final visit to the observation deck. Earth hung in space before him, blue, beautiful, and perhaps in its final days. He remembered his family's farm in Montana, the smell of pine trees after rain, the simple pleasure of watching sunrise over the mountains. Ready to depart, Captain. Parker's voice came through his comm. Reynolds took one last look at his home, world. On my way. He turned and headed for the bridge, determination hardening his features. Whatever happened, the Vorn would pay dearly for what they had started. The Retribution slipped away from lunar orbit, running dark with minimal power signatures. Its experimental stealth systems, reverse-engineered in part from Vorn technology, rendered it nearly invisible to sensors. As they approached the main battlefield near Venus, the scene that greeted them was apocalyptic. Earth's fleet fought valiantly but was badly outmatched. Human ships exploded in brilliant flashes against the backdrop of Venus's cloud-streaked atmosphere. The Vorn vessels, sleek obsidian constructs resembling curved blades, moved with uncanny precision, their energy weapons cutting through human defenses with ease. My God, whispered Lieutenant Paul Garcia from the sensor station. We've already lost half the fleet. Reynolds kept his expression neutral despite the knot in his stomach. Stay focused. Plot a course through their formation. We need to get behind their command ships. The Retribution glided silently through the chaos, occasionally firing its conventional weapons to maintain the appearance of being just another human vessel in the melee. Each shot was carefully calculated to avoid drawing undue attention. Engineering reports the resonance device is stable, Commander Parker reported. Dr. Martinez says we'll need to be within 5,000 kilometers of their flagship for maximum effect. Reynolds nodded. Identify their command structure. Which ship is calling the shots? The bridge crew worked frantically, analyzing communication, patterns, and formation movements. Finally, Lieutenant Garcia pointed to a massive vessel at the rear of the Vorn formation. Nearly 3 times the size of its escorts, it pulsed with strange energies. That one, sir. All tactical commands seem to originate there. And look, he highlighted a zone around the vessel. There's increased subspace distortion in that area. Could be they're preparing to bring in reinforcements. Perfect timing, Reynolds said grimly. Set course. Full impulse once we're through their screen. The Retribution accelerated, weaving through the battlefield with precision. They were 3/4 of the way to their target when disaster struck. Captain, we've been identified, Parker shouted. Multiple Vorn vessels breaking formation to intercept. The stealth systems had finally failed. Reynolds had hoped they would last longer, but wasn't surprised. Battle stations. All power to forward shields. Continue on course. Maximum speed. The Retribution shuddered as enemy fire impacted its shields. Unlike the Defiant months before, this ship had been specifically designed to withstand Vorn weapons, at least temporarily. They returned fire, their advanced weapons successfully disabling 2 pursuing vessels. Shields at 60% and holding, reported the tactical officer. Distance to target, 12,000 kilometers and closing. Reynolds gripped his command chair. Divert emergency power to engines. We need to get closer. The ship lurched forward, taking more hits as it raced toward the Vorn flagship. Alarms blared as systems began to fail under the assault. A direct hit to the port side sent sparks cascading across the bridge. Hull breach on decks 3 through 5, someone shouted. Emergency containment holding. Shields failing. Parker added, her voice steady despite the chaos. Down to 28%. Reynolds opened a ship-wide channel. All hands, prepare for emergency maneuvers. Dr. Martinez, status of the resonance device? Still operational, Captain. Martinez's voice came through, strained but determined. But we need to get closer. At this range, the effect might not propagate through their entire network. Reynolds studied the tactical display. They were being surrounded, cut off from their target by a wall of Vorn vessels. At their current rate, they'd be destroyed before reaching optimal position. Then he saw it. A gap in the Vorn formation where one of their ships had moved to engage an Earth vessel. A desperate plan formed in his mind. New heading 227 Mark IV, he ordered. Prepare to divert all remaining power to the forward shields and engines on my mark. Sir? Parker questioned, quickly understanding as she saw his intended path. That'll take us directly through their crossfire. Exactly. They won't expect it. Reynolds met her gaze. It's the only way, Commander. Parker nodded and relayed the orders. The Retribution banked sharply, accelerating toward what appeared to be certain destruction. Brace for impact! Reynolds shouted as they plunged into the gauntlet. The Retribution hurtled through the maelstrom of enemy fire, its hull glowing red-hot from the sustained assault. Inside, the crew worked frantically to keep systems online as the ship shuddered and groaned around them. Shields critical, multiple hull breaches on all decks, Parker called out, bracing herself as another impact sent tremors through the bridge. Reynolds remained focused on the tactical display. Distance to target? 8,000 kilometers and closing, Garcia reported. But at our current damage rate, we won't make it to optimal range. Reynolds made a swift calculation. They were running out of options. Dr. Martinez, we need alternatives. What if we detonate at current range? Martinez's voice came through broken and static-filled. Impact would be reduced, might only their local fleet, not their home system. Better than nothing, Reynolds muttered. He turned to Parker. Prepare to. His order was cut short as a massive explosion rocked the ship. The lights flickered and emergency systems kicked in, bathing the bridge in dim red illumination. Direct hit to engineering. A voice shouted over the comm. The main reactor is destabilizing. Casualties? Reynolds demanded. Dr. Martinez and half the engineering team, came the grim reply. They're gone, sir. A heavy silence fell over the bridge despite the chaos surrounding them. Martinez had been the resonance device's principal architect. Without her, they faced new complications. Reynolds swallowed hard. Can we still activate the device? Yes, sir, came the response from a junior engineer. Dr. Martinez. She left detailed protocols. We can do this. Then we continue, Reynolds decided, his voice firm. Tactical. Target their flagship with everything we've got left. We need to punch through their screen. The Retribution fired its remaining weapons, concentrated beams of energy slicing through space toward the Vorn command vessel. Several shots connected, causing visible damage to the alien ship's outer hull. They're responding, Garcia reported. The flagship is changing position. They're opening a wormhole. They're trying to retreat. Reynolds leaned forward. That's it. They're giving us exactly what we need. Set a direct course for that wormhole. Parker looked at him in shock. Sir, the resonance device was designed to affect their wormhole network from our space. If we enter it, we'll detonate it from inside their network instead, Reynolds finished, potentially multiplying its effect. Understanding dawned on Parker's face. A chain reaction through their entire system. Exactly. All power to engines. Get us into that wormhole before it closes. The Retribution surged forward, ignoring the barrage of fire from Vorn vessels suddenly desperate to stop them. The wormhole loomed ahead, a swirling vortex of energy, beautiful and terrifying. Impact in 10 seconds, Garcia called out. Reynolds opened a ship-wide channel. All hands, this is the captain. We are about to enter Vorn subspace. Our mission parameters have changed. We will detonate the resonance device from within their network. He paused. I want to thank each of you for your courage and sacrifice. What we do now will save Earth. It has been my greatest honor to serve with you. He closed the channel and nodded to Parker. Prepare the resonance device for manual detonation. 5 seconds to wormhole entry. The view screen filled with swirling blue-white energy as the Retribution plunged into the wormhole. The ship shuddered violently, systems failing as the alien. Physics of subspace tore at its structure. Resonance device ready, Parker announced, her hand hovering over the activation control. Through the view screen, they glimpsed something extraordinary. A vast network of interconnected tunnels pulsing with energy. The Vorn's interstellar highway system, visible from within. Now, Reynolds ordered quietly. Parker pressed the control. For a brief moment, nothing happened. Then a pulse of golden energy erupted from the ship's core, expanding outward in concentric waves that interacted with the wormhole's structure. The subspace tunnel around them began to warp and twist. It's working, someone shouted. The last thing Reynolds saw before consciousness faded was the wormhole network collapsing around them, the resonance cascade tearing through subspace like wildfire. 3 weeks passed. Earth waited in tense silence. After the Retribution had disappeared into the Vorn wormhole, the alien fleet had fallen into disarray. Some vessels had simply shut down, drifting powerless in space. Others had exploded without warning. A few had retreated through rapidly collapsing wormholes. In the aftermath, humanity had rallied, destroying the remaining Vorn ships stranded in the solar system. But the question remained. Was the war truly over, or merely paused? Admiral Wilson stood in Earth Command's Situation Room, surrounded by holographic displays showing the solar system's defensive posture. Repair crews worked to salvage what they could from the battlefield near Venus. Refugee ships were returning to Mars, beginning the long process of rebuilding. Still no sign of Vorn activity at any of our listening posts, reported General Laura Hayes. Long-range sensors show no wormhole signatures anywhere in the system. Wilson nodded. And the Retribution? No trace, sir. Given the nature of their mission, we have to assume... I know, Wilson said quietly. He'd sent Jack Reynolds and his crew on a one-way trip. The fact that it had apparently succeeded did little to ease his conscience. Sir, a communications officer interrupted. We're picking up an unusual energy signature near Pluto's orbit. The room fell silent. Vorn, Wilson asked sharply. Unknown, sir. It's... Wait, we're receiving a transmission. Audio only, heavily degraded. Put it through. Static filled the room, then broke into fragments of a voice. Earth command. Retribution. Request. Assistance. Wilson's eyes widened. Clean it up. Get me a location. Technicians worked, frantically to enhance the signal. Eventually, a clearer message emerged. This is Commander Diana Parker of the UEF Retribution. Request immediate assistance. Coordinates follow. Stunned silence gave way to cautious jubilation. Wilson immediately ordered a rescue mission. Within hours, a fast scout vessel was dispatched to the coordinates, far beyond Pluto in the outer reaches of the solar system. What they found defied explanation. The Retribution, or what remained of it, had somehow materialized back in normal space. The ship was barely recognizable, its hull warped and twisted in ways that violated conventional physics. More than half of it appeared to be simply missing, as though sliced away cleanly. They found 27 survivors out of a crew of 200, including Commander Parker. Captain Reynolds was not among them. 2 days later, Parker sat in a debriefing room at Luna Base, still pale and thin from her ordeal. Wilson sat across from her, recording devices capturing every word. What happened in there, Commander? He asked gently. Parker stared at her hands. It's difficult to describe, sir. When we activated the resonance device, it created a cascade failure throughout their network, just as designed. But something else happened. She looked up. We were thrown elsewhere. Not normal space. Not subspace either. Somewhere in between. How did you get back, Captain Reynolds? She said, her voice breaking slightly. He figured out the ship's navigational systems were detecting ripples in space-time, echoes of the collapse. He theorized we could follow them back, like breadcrumbs. But the remaining wormhole energy was limited. He calculated it wouldn't support the entire ship's mass. Understanding dawned on Wilson's face, so he ordered an emergency separation, jettisoned more than half the ship, including his own section, transferred all remaining power to what was left, and programmed the course. Parker met Wilson's eyes. His last order was to tell Earth that we won. Wilson sat back, processing this information. Did you? Win, I mean. Is the Vorn threat eliminated? Parker's expression hardened. Based on what our sensors recorded during the cascade, their entire wormhole network collapsed. The feedback would have caused catastrophic damage to any connected system, including their homeworld. At minimum, they've lost their ability to travel between stars. At worst, she didn't finish the thought. And Captain Reynolds? Any chance he survived? Parker looked away. The section he was in was exposed to raw subspace energies when we separated. No one could survive that. After a pause, she added, but he knew that when he made the decision. Wilson nodded slowly. I'll recommend him for the Solar Cross. Posthumously. He wouldn't care about medals, Parker said. He just wanted to make them pay for what they did to the Defiant, to make sure they couldn't do it again. As Parker was escorted to medical for further evaluation, Wilson remained in the debriefing room, contemplating the cost of victory. The war appeared to be over, but the rebuilding had just begun. 1 year passed. Humanity had begun to heal from the wounds of the Vorn War. Mars colonies were being re-established. The Jupiter mining operations were back online. A tentative optimism had returned to Earth. At a military ceremony in Geneva, the newly commissioned UEF Reynolds prepared for its maiden voyage. Named after the hero of the Vorn War, it represented humanity's new direction. A ship designed not just for defense, but for deep space exploration. Commander Parker, now Captain Parker, stood on the observation deck watching the final preparations. She'd been given command despite still carrying physical and psychological scars from her experience. No one else, Admiral Wilson had reasoned, better understood what might await humanity among the stars. Quite a view, said a familiar voice. Behind her, Parker turned to see Admiral Wilson approaching. Indeed, sir, she's a beautiful ship. Our most advanced yet, Wilson agreed, incorporating everything we learned from the Vorn conflict, and a few things we're still trying to understand. He referred to the salvage technology from the Retribution, systems that had been transformed by exposure to subspace energies in ways that continued to baffle Earth's scientists. Any second thoughts about the mission parameters? Wilson asked. Parker shook her head. No, sir, the probe data is clear. If I'm reading it correctly, something's out there waiting for us. 3 months earlier, automated probes scanning the edge of the solar system had detected unusual energy patterns similar to those recorded by the Retribution during its journey through subspace. The scientific community was divided on their meaning, but Parker had a theory she couldn't ignore. You understand the priorities, Wilson said. First and foremost, this is a scientific exploration mission. Any personal objectives are secondary. Understood, sir. But if there's even a chance. Wilson nodded. I know. I hope you're right. He extended his hand. Good luck, Captain. After the Admiral departed, Parker returned to the bridge where her crew was completing pre-launch procedures. Many were veterans of the war, including Lieutenant Garcia, now her first officer. All systems ready, Captain, he reported. Engineering reports the modified drive is stable and operating within parameters. The modified drive was their greatest innovation and biggest gamble, a propulsion system influenced by Vorn technology, but developed for exploration rather than war. Theoretically, it could safely navigate the boundary regions between normal space and subspace, allowing for faster-than-light travel without the catastrophic environmental effects of the Vorn wormholes. Very good. Begin launch sequence. The Reynolds departed Earth orbit smoothly, accelerating toward the outer system. Over the following weeks, they conducted a series of increasingly ambitious tests of their new drive system, gradually pushing further beyond conventional physics. Then came the day of their first major test, attempting to reach the coordinates, where the probe had detected the anomalous energy patterns. Drive at full capacity, reported the chief engineer. All systems nominal. Parker took a deep breath. Engage. The stars on the view screen streaked and then vanished, replaced by a swirling gray-blue mist, the visual representation of what their sensors detected in the space between spaces. It wasn't a true wormhole like the Vorn had used, but rather a carefully controlled bubble of altered spacetime. Transition successful, Garcia confirmed. We're holding steady at the boundary. Layer. Parker nodded. Take us to the coordinates. The Reynolds moved through the strange environment, sensors carefully mapping their surroundings. After 20 minutes of tense silence, they arrived at their destination. Energy patterns intensifying, reported the science officer. Definitely artificial in nature, Parker leaned forward. On screen, the view screen shifted, showing a pulsing web of golden light, almost identical to what Parker had glimpsed in her final moments aboard the Retribution before the resonance cascade. There's something else, the science officer added. We're detecting a signal. It appears to be a Federation emergency beacon. Parker's heart raced. Origin? Calculating. It's coming from a small object approximately 5,000 kilometers from our position. Take us there, Parker ordered, her voice steady despite the hope and fear battling within her. Prepare retrieval systems. As they approached, the object became visible, a small escape pod, heavily damaged and modified with unfamiliar technology. Its hull bore the faded insignia of the United Earth Fleet. Life signs? Parker asked quietly. The science officer worked his console, then looked up, in amazement. One life sign human, faint but stable. Parker closed her eyes briefly. Bring it aboard. Medical team to the shuttle bay. Hours later, in the ship's medical bay, Parker stood beside a recovery pod housing an unconscious figure, thin, scarred, with a year's growth of beard, but unmistakably Captain Jack Reynolds. The ship's doctor shook her head in wonder. I can't explain it, Captain. By all rights, he should be dead. His cellular structure shows signs of massive subspace radiation exposure, but somehow, it's as if he adapted to it. Will he recover? I believe so. His vitals are stabilizing. Parker nodded and moved closer to the pod. How? She whispered, not expecting an answer. To her shock, Reynolds' eyes fluttered open. They glowed faintly, with the same golden energy they had observed in the boundary space. Diana? He rasped, his voice barely audible. I'm here, Jack, she replied, taking his hand. You're safe now. A ghost of a smile crossed his lips. Not just me, he whispered. Found others. Others? Parker repeated. What others? But Reynolds had slipped back into unconsciousness, leaving Parker with more questions than answers. In his office, Admiral Wilson received Parker's preliminary report with astonishment. The discovery of Reynolds alive, transformed but alive, was incredible enough. But his cryptic message about others raised troubling new possibilities. Were there other human survivors trapped in the boundary space? Or had Reynolds encountered something else during his year in that realm between realms? And what did it mean for humanity's future? Wilson stared at the final lines of Parker's report. Request permission to continue exploration of boundary space regions. Captain Reynolds's recovery suggests we have only begun to understand the consequences of the Vorn conflict and what awaits us beyond our traditional understanding of space and time. With a heavy sigh, Wilson authorized the mission's continuation. The war might be over, but humanity's journey was just beginning. 3 days passed before Reynolds regained full consciousness. When he did, the medical staff was astonished by his rapid recovery. Whatever changes the subspace exposure had caused seemed to grant him extraordinary resilience. Captain Parker entered the medical bay to find Reynolds sitting up, staring out the viewport at the swirling boundary space surrounding the ship. The Reynolds, he said without turning. Named her after me, did they? Bit presumptuous, considering I wasn't quite done yet. Parker smiled, relief washing over her. His voice was deeper, raspier than before, but the wry humor was pure Jack Reynolds. How did you know the ship's name? I don't recall mentioning it. Reynolds tapped his temple. I can feel it. The ship, the systems, the boundary space around us. He finally turned to face her. Things are different for me now, Diana. His eyes still held that faint golden glow, subtle enough that it might be missed in normal lighting, but unmistakable now. Tell me what happened, Parker said, taking a seat beside his bed. How did you survive? What did you mean about others? Reynolds was quiet for a moment, organizing his thoughts. When we activated the resonance device, it didn't just collapse their network. It transformed it, and me with it. He looked at his hands. I was exposed to pure subspace energy when my section separated. Should have killed me instantly. Instead, it changed me. He described drifting through the twisted remains of the Vorn network, his consciousness somehow preserved despite his body being subjected to forces that should have torn him apart. Eventually, he learned to navigate this strange realm, to influence it with his thoughts. And then I found them, he continued. Or they found me. Survivors, like me, changed by exposure to the network's collapse. Parker leaned forward. Other humans? From the Retribution? Reynolds shook his head. No, Vorn. The revelation stunned Parker into silence. Not many, Reynolds clarified. Maybe a dozen. Scientists mostly. They were studying the network when we triggered the cascade. Got caught in the same transformation I did. He went on to explain that, trapped together in the boundary space, traditional hostilities had eventually given way to cooperation for survival. Without their technological advantage and military hierarchy, the Vorn scientists had revealed a different facet of their civilization. They're not inherently warlike, Reynolds said. The attack on us, it was driven by fear. Their long-range sensors had detected our early warp experiments. Their leaders convinced them we represented an existential threat that needed to be eliminated before we developed further. That's supposed to justify the slaughter of our colonies? Parker asked, anger edging her voice. No, Reynolds replied firmly. It explains but doesn't excuse. The Vorn I met came to understand that. They helped me survive, taught me to navigate the boundary space, and eventually, to find a way back. Where are they now? Still there. Building something new in the spaces between spaces. They asked me to deliver a message. Before Parker could ask what message, the ship's alert system activated. "Captain, to the bridge," came Garcia's urgent voice over the comm. "We can finish this later," Parker said, standing. "No," Reynolds replied, swinging his legs over the side of the bed. "I need to come with you." Despite the doctor's protests, Reynolds accompanied Parker to the bridge. The crew stared in barely concealed shock as their supposedly dead hero entered alongside their captain. "Report," Parker ordered, trying to maintain normalcy. Garcia tore his eyes away from Reynolds. "We're detecting multiple energy signatures converging on our position, similar to the pattern that led us to Captain Reynolds, but much larger." "On screen," Parker commanded. The view screen displayed several approaching objects, not ships in the conventional sense, but organized patterns of energy moving with clear purpose through the boundary space. "They're here," Reynolds said quietly. "The Vorn survivors?" Parker asked. Reynolds nodded. "And others who've joined them. This realm, it's not empty. There are entities that have existed here long before either of our species discovered it." As if in response to his words, the energy patterns surrounded the ship, pulsing in what seemed like a coordinated sequence. "We're receiving a transmission," Garcia reported, bewildered. "But it's not coming through our communications array. It's appearing directly in our computer system." Text appeared on the main screen. "We come in peace. The war is over. A new beginning is possible." Parker looked to Reynolds, who nodded in confirmation. "This is their message. An offer of reconciliation." "After everything they did?" Parker asked incredulously. "The Vorn civilization as we knew it is gone," Reynolds explained. "The resonance cascade destroyed their homeworld, their fleet, their leadership. These survivors represent something new, a chance to build a different relationship." Over the following hours, a remarkable exchange took place. The transformed Vorn shared knowledge about the boundary realm and the entities native to it, beings of pure energy that had observed both species with curiosity. They proposed a three-way exchange: Vorn knowledge of subspace physics, human innovation and adaptability, and the boundary entity's understanding of energy manipulation. In the ship's conference room, Parker and her senior staff debated the proposal. "It could be a trap," Garcia warned. "I don't think so," Reynolds countered. "They could have destroyed us already if that was their intention. They need us as much as we might need them." Parker studied Reynolds thoughtfully. "You're different, Jack. Not just physically. A year ago you were driven by vengeance against the Vorn. A year in the boundary space changes perspective," he replied. "I've seen what holding on to hatred does, what cooperation can achieve. The Vorn who attacked us are gone. These survivors want something better." Finally, Parker made her decision. "We'll bring their proposal back to Earth. Let humanity decide." The return journey was tense but uneventful. The boundary entities and Vorn survivors remained in their realm, awaiting humanity's response. Reynolds, his transformation stabilizing, prepared to present their case to Earth's leadership. On the day of the council meeting in Geneva, Reynolds stood before representatives of all human colonies. His appearance, the subtle glow in his eyes, his prematurely white hair, marked him as something both human and not. "A year ago," he began, "I commanded a mission of vengeance. I went into the heart of enemy territory with a weapon of unprecedented destructive power, determined to make them pay for attacking us first." He paused. "I succeeded beyond any expectation. An entire civilization paid the price." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. "But from that destruction came an opportunity we never imagined. We've discovered a new realm of existence, new forms of intelligence, and a chance to forge something unprecedented in human history. A true interspecies alliance built not on domination, but cooperation." Reynolds gestured to the images displaying the boundary realm and its native entities. These beings exist in a state we're only beginning to comprehend. They've watched both our species stumble into their domain through our crude attempts to manipulate subspace. Now they offer to guide us toward something greater. A council member rose. And we're supposed to trust the very species that slaughtered our colonies? That would have exterminated humanity without hesitation? No, Reynolds answered firmly. You're supposed to trust me. I who lost my ship, my crew, my very humanity to their aggression. I who delivered the vengeance we all sought. His eyes flared briefly with golden light. And I'm telling you, this is our path forward. Admiral Wilson stood next. Captain Reynolds' transformation gives him unique insight into this boundary realm. His experience with these Vorn survivors cannot be dismissed, but neither can the millions of human lives lost. Debate raged for days. Eventually, a compromise emerged. A controlled exchange would begin, but limited to scientific knowledge and conducted primarily through Reynolds and the crew of the Reynolds as intermediaries. 6 months later, the first joint human-Vorn entity project bore fruit. A new propulsion system that allowed safe travel through the boundary realm without the destructive side effects of the original Vorn wormholes. 3 years after that, the first permanent human settlement in the boundary realm was established, a research station where scientists from both species worked alongside the native entities. Captain Parker remained in command of the Reynolds, which became humanity's flagship for boundary space exploration. Reynolds himself, continuing to evolve with his transformation, served as Earth's ambassador to both the Vorn survivors and the boundary entities. On the 10th anniversary of the Defiant's destruction, the attack that had started everything, a memorial ceremony was held at the exact coordinates where the ship had fallen. The monument, a sphere of pure energy suspended between normal space and the boundary realm, visible from both, created through the combined efforts of all three species. Reynolds stood before it, Parker at his side. His transformation had progressed, his physical form now shimmered at the edges, halfway between matter and energy. Was it worth it? Parker asked quietly. All the death, the destruction, to reach this point? Reynolds considered the question carefully. I would give anything to have avoided the war entirely, he finally said. But given what happened, yes. We've become something more than we were. Something that might, in time, be worthy of the stars. As if in response, the monument pulsed with golden light, a beacon visible across two realms of existence. A reminder of how the war began, and how one ship's final blaze of glory had transformed destruction into creation. Throughout human space, the story was told and retold, how they attacked first, how one human ship ended the war, and how from the ashes of vengeance rose something no one could have imagined, a future where humanity's greatest strength proved to be not our capacity for retribution, but our ability to forge new beginnings from the darkest of endings. The end.